Hi again, everyone. I'm Ollie Matthews. This is the Narcissistic Resistance, and this resistance video is sponsored by contribution from Christine. And she sent in a story saying there's a story about a rejected mother who doesn't understand why she's been rejected by her adult daughter. And so here we go. Estrangement doesn't just happen to bad moms. It happened to me too. Uh-oh. The word estrangement was never in my vocabulary before it happened to me 7 years ago, and like many parents, I was ashamed and reluctant to talk about it. 68% of those who are estranged from a family member believe there is a stigma attached. Yeah, because, there's a stigma. Like, oh, wait a minute, that's the whole point. That's the whole point of us going no contact with you, is to give you a stigma. Yeah, very good. They believe there's a stigma. Yeah, there's a stigma. That's the whole point of going no contact. But once I started researching, I realized I'm not alone. Just searched the word estranged on Facebook and dozens of support groups pop up, including mine. Facebook support groups, another red flag. My son Dan and I had a typical mother-son relationship. We both like hiking and photography, so we would spend time together doing those activities. He was a charming boy who grew into a strong, capable man. I'm already seeing the son husbanding here. Charming boy, strong, capable man. I could always count on him, whether the car battery was dead or the computer malfunctioned. Where was Dan's dad? Why are you going to your son for your car battery being dead? That's something you go to a husband for. She son husbanded him. Or for a laugh or a hug. Again, where's her husband? You don't see this? She's treating him like a husband. I hope that's not her and her son. When I first met the girl, Dan would eventually marry, she was in the car with my daughter. It was dark, but I still remember her smiling face lit up by the dashboard as we were introduced. I know it sounds cliche, but I remember thinking she was cute as a button, and she was. She and Dan had gone to school together, and a friend told us she'd always had a crush on him. After that, we started seeing a lot of her at our house. What do you mean a friend told you that she had a crush on your son? Like, why are you this intimately involved in your son's life? You don't understand, Christine, why the son went, look, I can see it already. Why? I can see it. After that, we started seeing a lot of her at our house. She and I both really liked fashion, so we would talk about clothes sometimes. And she's probably a lot like this woman. So he married his mother, and then his younger version of his mother took him away from his older version of his mother because he's a son husband. One winter day, she piled into my car with Dan and his sister and me to go shopping. You see how she talks about her? She piled into her car. Pile. See, everything's got a negative, passive aggressive kind of, but it's the passive aggressive. It's it's so obvious. A cashier remarked we were all wearing plaid flannel, not exactly high fashion, but somehow we'd all matched. Dan began renting a little house from my husband and I in town. So your husband is in the picture. So your husband's in the picture. Why are you calling your son to fix your fucking car battery or your computer? because your husband's a little bitch made pussy soy cuck that this is every narcissism. This is the background to every narcissist son husband story I do, Christine. Dan began renting a little house from my husband and I in town. And when she moved in, a few months later, we were happy. So again, Dan and her are now living in a house that they're renting from you. So she's still controlling this guy. You don't see she's still in his life? As the months passed, Dan and his girlfriend all openly talked about marriage. One day when Dan came to visit, I asked him if he'd proposed yet. He cracked a goofy grin. What's so funny, I asked. Dan confessed that he planned to ask her at Disneyland on the Castle Bridge outside Fantasyland. I think she will like that, he said. I called his dad right away and we decided to part. Why are you getting in? And I called his dad and we decided to purchase theme park tickets for them. Why? Why? Let him do it on his own. Let him do it on his own. Did he ask you? Did he ask you to do that? No, but this is her way of clawing into every part of his relationship. And then if he calls her on it, he's the asshole because she looks like, oh, he paid for his theme park tickets. Bullshit. I don't know why he went no contact with me. Right. Dan's 24th birthday was coming up anyway. It seemed like the perfect gift. After the engagement, things started to change. Dan's future in-laws seemed pleased about their upcoming marriage and began to make formal plans for the wedding. Dan and his fiancée were busy with that, so we didn't see much of them over the next few months. When we did, I began to sense that Dan was comparing our family to hers. Once he made a comment that her family always had their children in sports. Then he said he doubted I had known anything about the whole kids in sports thing. It's true my husband and I didn't push our kids towards athletics, but we encouraged them to pursue activities in which they expressed interest. What he said that day stunned me. I didn't correct him, but it was something his dad and I talked about later. Getting the call. The beginning of the end took place about 2 weeks before their wedding. One afternoon, I called Dan to discuss some of the details. I mentioned that the big day was coming up pretty quickly and asked him if he was certain about the marriage. Why would... So now, she was going to buy the fucking theme park ticket so he can propose. But 2 weeks before the wedding, she's now putting in his, are you sure? Oh, God. You know what? I don't need you at my wedding, bitch. I see that. You know why Dan was questioning about sports when he saw her other when he saw his future in-laws? Because, wow, this is normal. This isn't how I was raised. If he was certain. 2 weeks? 2 weeks? His mother, are you sure? After she offers to buy the theme park tickets so he can marry her. Since they were so young, it was a natural question to ask. My husband and I have been married for over 35 years. He was so young, and yet he's the guy you're going to when your car breaks down. Or when your computer, I could see a little more because it's more of a tech thing. Or if I just need a laugh or a hug from a 23 to 24-year-old. Oh, gee, I don't know why. I don't know why you went no contact. I don't know what the issue is here. We both had first marriages that didn't work out, and we felt pressured into those vows. Dan knew that. When he responded, yes, I'm sure I'm marrying her, I felt good about it. We laughed and chit-chatted some more. Everything was fine, or so I thought. A few days later, Dan called again, and I found out things weren't fine at all. It was close to midnight when the phone rang, and I grabbed it fast. My husband was sick, and had just settled down to sleep, and I was afraid I would wake him. I honestly don't remember most of what was said in that conversation. Seems like it'd be a pretty important conversation to have to remember if you're about to come in and say, I don't know why. This is the beginning of the end. This is where it all happened, but I don't remember the conversation. I honestly don't remember most of what was said in that conversation, but thinking about it now still puts my stomach in knots. I do remember Dan explaining in a very clear, matter-of-fact tone that he'd never used with me before, that his fiance's family would not be coming to the rehearsal dinner we'd planned. At first, I was so shocked that I didn't even reply. That's when he put his fiancée on the phone, and she said something like, "That's my family." To which I responded that I didn't know what she meant. Dan came back on and said something about me being unfriendly at the bridal shower the month before. Something about it. It just said something. So something happened at the bridal shower that made her in-laws say, made his future in-laws, her parents say, I'm not going to be around these people. It's amazing how the narcissist very conveniently has these lapses in memory at very important times that they just kind of want you to want to breeze past in these important stories that I'm sure Yahoo Style Lifestyle did a follow-up on, followed up on, like, wait a minute, this is kind of an important juncture of the story. You don't know what was said. Reportedly, something happened at a bridal shower, okay, but you don't really remember, but this is I was stunned hearing his accusation hurt, and Dan knew me better than that. My husband and I were in disbelief. How could a person you've loved your whole life act that way? A few days were spent in sort of a waiting mode, just trying to keep busy. When Dan did call again, it wasn't to apologize or explain. He called to confirm that we wouldn't be at the wedding. When he said he was just confirming that we would not be at the wedding, that they needed to know the plates, tears slid down my cheeks. I was his mother, diminished to a number on a catering order. After that, I had no choice but to call our relatives who'd been invited and try to explain why we were no longer going to Dan's wedding. Of course, there were questions. What happened? Estrangement triggers so much shame, especially when the answer you're left with is, I'm not sure. It feels like everyone is making judgments about you, believing that you must have done some awful thing. Yeah, well... It's like the story jumps. So I'm just trying to make sure I didn't miss something here. Okay, yeah, he called to confirm that we wouldn't be at the wedding. So the story jumps from her parents not coming to the rehearsal dinner, I see, to Dan calling and confirming, just saying there's a lot being left out here. It just jumps to now you're not coming to the wedding. He called to confirm that we wouldn't be at the wedding. When he said he was just confirming that we would not be at the wedding and that they needed to know for the plates, tears slid down my cheeks. I was his mother and diminished to a number on a catering order. Does it say he disinvited them to the wedding? Or did they say... See, there's a lot up here that's being left out in the getting the call. Okay? And the narcissist likes to get vague when they explain why they've been gone no contact with. After that, I had no choice but to call our relatives who'd been invited and try to explain why we were no longer going to Dan's wedding. Of course, there were questions. What happened? Estrangement triggers. So much shame, especially when the answer you're left with is, I'm not sure. It feels like everyone is making judgments about you, believing you must have done some awful thing. Well, why is the whole family all of a sudden believing you do some awful thing unless you're capable of doing some awful thing in the past? Okay, you don't become the victim of no contact and narcissism in a vacuum and out of the blue. Okay, you're not all of a sudden, boom, you're the scapegoat after 60 years. Boom, you're the black sheep permanently after 60 years out of nowhere. No. That's why she's vague. That's why the story goes all vague and fuzzy at the most important, most critical juncture. There were a couple relatives who immediately rallied and said, something's going on. Do you think she wants him all to herself? No relative said that to her. No relative said that to her. That's her mother's projection because she wanted her son all to herself. And that's what she probably did at the bridal shower. This behavior, okay, this borderline mother losing the son husband, they act out. Just like my mother acted out at my wedding, at my first wedding and bridal shower, and acted out over Charlene as well. The shit my mother pulled at my ex-wife's bridal shower was legendary. They bought us a camcorder. My parents bought a camcorder for the bridal shower. And my mother said, it's for the wedding night. Thanks for that memory. Fuck. Oh, I don't even think I took that fucking thing out of the box. Statement like that were supported in kind, and my thought was, I don't know, but I'm not going to say anything bad about anybody. 2 weeks between that phone call and the wedding, I walked around in the daze. Every time the phone rang, my heart would jump. I would think, it's got to be him. This can't be happening. He's going to call. But when it wasn't him, there was also a sense of relief. He had been so cold, and I couldn't bear the thought of hearing that cold tone in his voice again. I did tell his siblings, you can probably still go to the wedding if you want. But our 4 other children were very protective of my husband and I, and felt that Dan's behavior had been very inappropriate. Since we had already ordered Greek food, Dan's favorite, for the rehearsal dinner, we decided to have a couple extended family members over to eat with us before the wedding. The day of the wedding was very sad. I think we all woke up that morning thinking Dan would surely call and make things right, but he didn't. And so we did our best to avoid talking about the wedding. My husband and I are just numb and spent. That day, we mostly alternated between sitting long-faced in front of the TV, behind a newspaper, or in a patio chair gazing out at nothing. I remember feeling for Dan, too, wondering if he was hurting there without his family. It seemed too painful to even imagine, even if he had chosen the arrangement himself. One day, I was in line at the bank and spotted Dan across from me in the grocery line. It was just this utter, oh my gosh, there he is. But when he left the store, he walked right by me. I finished my banking, but I broke down in tears once I got to my car and cried all the way home. He had this very distinctive sound, and his car had this very distinctive sound, and a little while later, I heard him coming to drop off his rent check. He was still renting from us at the time. I hurried outside thinking maybe I could catch him in time and we could finally talk. But when I got down to the mailbox, he was already speeding away. I texted him, "Next time you see your mother in the store, maybe you could speak to her." He responded that he didn't see me, but how could that be possible? As I looked back, I thought, well, I didn't jump out of the bank line and run over to him. Maybe he felt awkward. I do have a lot of empathy for him, being that it was probably a distressing moment for him too. A couple weeks later, Dan had gotten a new job and texted me that he'd be moving out of our rental property. I was pleasantly surprised when he agreed to meet in person and turn over the keys. As we drove up his street, I had this whole fantasy in my head about a tearful reunion. Of course she did, because she wants her son husband to come home. Unfortunately, it didn't go that way. He was really guarded, and so were we. It was awkward, and Dan ended up rushing off. As he was jogging to his car, I said, "I'm going to cry every day for the rest of my life." Maybe that was a stupid thing to say, but that's how I felt in the moment, and I did cry every day for months. But Dan didn't even turn around when I said that to him. He just kept going and drove off. I considered reaching out after they had time to get settled, but after he'd been so cold toward me, I couldn't bring myself to do it. It was clear Dan had changed and seemed that he was done with us, and that we couldn't even fix it even if we wanted to. I was a basket case during those first 6 months of estrangement, gaining weight, not sleeping or having nightmares. That first holiday season was particularly tough. I rushed around wrapping presents and preparing food. But when Christmas was over, I lay in bed wondering if I had done enough, like a boyfriend, like a lost spouse. I thought, will everyone else just leave me too? It was pitiful, but fear of abandonment is common for estranged parents. You've devoted your whole life to your child. If that person can leave, then anyone can. That night, as I lay there in darkness, thinking of all the time and energy I'd wasted crying over a grown adult who didn't want me, I couldn't help to think about how much time I was wasting. I'd worn out my husband, my other children, and even some of my friends with my sadness. They all missed the old optimistic Sherry. So do I. There was no old optimistic Sherry. You were a vampiric son-husbanding woman, okay? And Dan was the only one with enough balls to do something about it. Marching into the future. Determined to reclaim my life, I stopped wallowing in the past and marched into my future. As I sought out information, I discovered that thousands and thousands of regular nice people suffer from estrangement. I know there are situations where adult children leave parents for good reasons, but that's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about regular parents who are kind and supportive, people who sacrifice and even took out mortgages on their house to pay for their children's college educations. And yet, all the advice I was seeing felt very judgmental towards the parents, placing blame and responsibility of reconciliation on them. Because unless there's a drug issue or an addiction issue or something like that, and even those are usually caused by, it's the parents' fault. And it's clearly your fault. That made me mad. Dan's choice to leave his family wasn't going to define me. I'm a good mother, a good person. We're still a good family. Slowly, I'm starting to put myself back together. I used my education in human behavior to conduct an online survey and connected with thousands of parents of estranged children. Well, let me ask you, of all these parents of estranged children, do all their stories get real vague and I can't for some reason remember at the most crucial juncture of the story? Let's not forget how vague this whole story got right at the crucial point. I can't remember and I don't know. And then it just jumps around from her parents not going to the rehearsal dinner to them not coming to the wedding. There's a whole lot of shit they don't want to tell you. After you go no contact, the narcissist story gets real vague. And if you're really moving on, what are you doing here? What are you doing on Facebook blogs? You're not moving on. You're full of shit. You're just looking for other people to tell you it's not your fault. I began using my experience as an author to put together. I used my education in human behavior to conduct an online survey and connected with thousands of parents of estranged adult children. I began using my experience as an author to put a book together to help other parents and filled it with techniques I was using to help myself. Done with Crying. It was published last year. Oh, so this is like an ad too. Then a year after Dan moved out of the rental house, he called. For part of that conversation, it felt like I was talking to a stranger. But there were also moments where I thought he was intentionally bringing up things that we had in common, like his new camera and some of the hikes that he and his wife had gone on to try to connect. Those were the moments when the distance fell away and I felt like, wow, this is my son again. He assured you, I'll call you again, Mom, soon. That made me feel very hopeful. Months passed and he never called again. It was a big emotional setback. All of those feelings of loss came tumbling back, but by then I had done enough research to know it's not unusual for adults to cut off their families, to periodically return and then leave again. These episodic estrangements are the worst. Each time the parents are devastated again, it isn't right to inflict emotional torture on people who have raised and loved you. And I'd had a taste of that. I decided I'd start taking better care of myself and became determined to help other estranged parents do the same. In the years since, I've only seen and spoken to my son a handful of times. We did have one good visit about 8 months after that phone call. Dan was apologetic and even a little tearful. He had all the earmarks of a successful reunion, and we were so hopeful. But when he stopped unexpectedly a few mornings later, he brought his wife, and that meeting didn't go well. I apologized, although I really didn't know what for, and to her credit, Dan's wife too. But they refused to talk about what had happened. They were very clear that they wanted to move forward and forget the past. Because they don't want to go sit there and listen to your histrionic bullshit and you try to rewrite what you did. This vague thing that you can't even remember, but come on. And our family wasn't wasn't comfortable with that. How can we move forward without understanding what went wrong? 4.5 years ago, Dan and his wife moved to another state where her parents and siblings had all moved. He did come to say goodbye in person, but it was mostly awkward and sad because we didn't know if we'd ever see him again. So far, we haven't. I told his siblings that if they want to try to reach out to Dan or his wife, that's their business. I'm not going to ask. I would certainly never preclude them from having a relationship with him. They all know that if he knocked on my door tomorrow, I would open it. But as far as I know, none of them have. Sometimes people judge me and other estranged parents who have moved forward. They would say never give up on their child, but I understand their feelings. but sometimes giving in to an adult child's decision is the only sensible choice. I wish my son the best. I truly hope he's happy and well. But I count too. And that's what I want other estranged families to know. If you can just let go of all those whys and what ifs and move on to what's next, you can live a fulfilling life. All right. Sherry Miggers she's the suppounder of rejectedparents.net. No wonder. Rejectedparents.net is... I did a video on their community. I did. Oh, God, I did this. So this is the head of... Well, that answers that. Then. Look, this is a son-husbanding woman who made a scene at the engagement party, and they had enough. And the son had enough, because the narcissist always gets vague at the most important. Once there's no contact, once you're no contact from the narcissist story becomes real vague. The story has a big hole right in the middle, right in the most crucial point she can't remember, and it jumps from her parents not coming to the bridal shower to them being disinvited to the wedding. There's a big black hole of vagueness there. And that's where your problem lies. And the fact that this is written by the founder of rejectedparents.net and is getting pushed on fucking Yahoo Lifestyle, everybody, just goes to show you once again what I've been trying to tell you. They are trying to take the narcissism channels like mine, demonetize them and deplatform them, and then make our abusers into the victims. That's what Yahoo's doing here. We've been through this. I believe it was Inside the Mind of the Narcissist. When was this posted? Yesterday, 2 days ago. This is recent, guys. This is recent. This is societal narcissism right here. This is them. They're making our abusers the victims. Right here. This is the website I called out in Inside the Mind of the Narcissist, Post No Contact. May 22nd, 2019. Everybody's being deplatformed. I'm being demonetized. I mean, look at my last couple videos. We'll go. I mean, I'll even just show you right here. Running. Not suitable. Societal narcissism, not suitable. Societal narcissism, not suitable. Confirmed. Societal narcissism. It's the societal narcissism. They are deplatforming mine, downgrading mine, and now you got Yahoo News making one of my bigger societal narcissism. And it's not because of me specifically, but I'm showing you what is happening here. It can't be any plainer than this, guys. It can't be any plainer than this for you guys. They're making our abusers the victims. That's the way it is. So, thank you, Christine, for all your support. Another contribution and sending me this in. I really appreciate it. Thank you to everybody watching. Please leave any opinions in the comment section below. And again, if you want your story read on the channel, you have a topic you'd like me to cover, a narcissist you'd like to expose, you'd like to set up Skype, a phone call, have a private video made, or a Facebook live chat, or you'd like to sponsor a video like this for someone who needs help and can't afford it, or just make a contribution to the channel in general to keep it supported, growing, and successful, because this channel survives 100% on contributions from all of you. Without you guys, all this goes away. So if you like what you see here and you want to see more videos like this, you know what to do with the PayPal and email links in the description box. Also, please like and share this video wherever you can. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't, and be sure to click the subscription bell to be notified of all my video uploads. I'm Ollie Matthews. This has been The Narcissistic Resistance. Take care.